Marcia, welcome to Speak Spotlight.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's brilliant to have you here and talk about your work. You do so much within the world of neurodiversity. Would you mind telling us a bit about your background and how you got started?
Really. So my background has been in education. The predominantly of my career is I've worked in primary, I've worked in secondary, I've been a youth worker, I've been an early years practitioner. Predominantly I've worked in higher education and further education, and I'm a qualified careers advisor. And I've worked for the local authority, supporting parents and young people with special educational needs around educational healthcare plans, tribunals, annual reviews, which are to do with educational healthcare plans, to support people in schools, just to give a little bit of a picture. But predominantly it's about empowerment. And I think for me, my journey, and I would say it's about 30 years or so, or just shy of that. So it's been a little while, is really because my own lived experience with dyslexia, being diagnosed at 16. And I just really wanted to always help and empower others to find their voice, but also their career path, because I didn't feel like anyone understood about my career and passion. And yeah, I've been advocating for a long, long time. Before, the word neurodiversity, for me, it was all about dyslexia and feeling included and belonging. And last year, I became an author editing Black Brilliant and Dyslexia, and that was really about representation around neurodiversity, dyslexia, and feeling that people feel belonging, because dyslexia doesn't discriminate. So it can happen to different ethnic groups, different areas of the world. And so that's really just a little bit about me. But yeah, I've been in education for a long time, and I'm just passionate about helping others as much as I can. And it's really, for me, is about the next generation, and what does that look like?
I got chills listening to you when you were talking about empowerment, and it's so important because some people haven't got necessarily that support network at home. They haven't got, and especially when you're dyslexic or neurodiverse, you have that lack of self-belief. You've had your confidence knocks, and I think a lot of neurodiverse people will be lying to say they haven't experienced that in some way. But
Yeah.
knowing that they had been supported with that through a social worker or a teacher is absolutely everything. And I think seeing someone like you, Marcia, who's done incredible, not only their career but in personal life and what you've achieved, it instills in them, I can do this
Yeah.
as well, and that's what's so important.
Yeah, and it, don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily easy. I always say I've had to kind of hack the system, and people say, don't say that, don't say that. But in the sense that I had to find me, and I had to believe in me, and have self-acceptance about my strengths and what I would say are my weaknesses. But it's the way I'm designed. And so once I start getting my head around that, how can the support systems that I'm in support me and learn to ask for help? Because I just always felt that I'm not good enough. So asking for help is just always the go-to. And I was like, I'm going to try and do this on my own, but I also do need help. And so that was some of my go-tos, or my kind of tips, is learning to ask for help, but coming from a place of self-esteem and love, if that makes sense. So I think that's my starting point, but it wasn't easy. I had to really do a lot of kind of moving away that imposter syndrome and feeling good enough and self-doubt. But I think it comes from the fact that the systems that we have in place doesn't always make people belong. And that just tells me that the system, it's not me what's broken, it's the system, in a way, if that makes sense. So I don't want to put a bad note on it, but I just feel that it's not about me necessarily, it's about the systems we're part of. So just take, for example, assistive technology. The fact that I've got something I can talk into my phone, for example, it really liberates me, where I can speak about it, but it's, oh gosh, that spelling, oh, it takes so much time. But the fact I've got something, so that just tells me, in our system, we need to think about what learning looks like and how people can be engaged, whether it's through speaking their assignment rather than having to write everything down. If you're testing my memory, it's not going to be accurate, because sometimes my memory is going to let me down, not because it doesn't want to, but that phonological processing of information, it can be overwhelming. I'll stop talking there, because I could talk on and not have a
Oh,
break.
no, no, honestly, because it's so relevant, and that's where that passion and that drive comes from, because it's that injustice, the fact that all these young people, and you mentioned there that you got diagnosed later in life at 60, later in life, it's no age, but fairly late, and so many people who are neurodiverse, especially dyslexia, it doesn't get picked up in education. And then you've probably spent 16 years of your life thinking, I'm stupid, I can't get this right, I feel behind, where actually there's an explanation for that. And when you mentioned systems there, it's, if I would have been given this software, if I would have been given these coping mechanisms or that
Yeah.
nurture, or it could have turned out completely differently. And a lot of people I've spoke to on Speaker Spotlight and within my work have all said to me, you know, it is like a form of loss. If I would have been diagnosed early on and I would have had that, my life could have been completely differently. And it is really sad.
Yeah, and I think differently, but if I didn't have some of those, what we say, setbacks or maneuvering or navigate, I wouldn't be the person I am as well. So it's finding that balance, but knowing that there is an injustice, like you said, but knowing that, yeah, it could be so different for sure, because I selectively muted in the sense that I just didn't want to speak. I didn't want to be asked to read. But also the biggest things, and I like reading aloud, but in a space where I feel confident in terms of knowing the words and just, just feeling at ease and relaxed. But when you're under pressure, it can be overwhelming, because I can read, but the way maybe I'm reading or learning and seeing those letters, I might need a little bit more practice. And just for me, it just traumatized me, to be honest. And I just don't want other young people to feel traumatized by their experience. But that's why I'm saying sometimes the system needs to look at itself and do some inside work about how we're enabling you know, young people going through our education system to be able to be themselves and show up as themselves. How are we supporting them in that learning process? Does it always have to be a standardized test? Could we do it differently? And it's those kind of questions, because we know it's not us or people, or I'll speak for myself as being dyslexic, it's not me, because I always knew I had a good imagination. I always knew I was thinking, and I was always thinking that, like, a bigger picture, like, why is the sky blue, or all sorts of things that nobody ever had that conversation with me to show that I was thinking, or I liked literature, or I liked English. It was, I loved school, but school just didn't love me.
Oh, and it is, like when you put it like that, it is heartbreaking. And but you are right what you're saying. It's shaped you. It's your resilience, and we wouldn't want anyone to go through trauma, because I've been there myself. I was traumatized for education, but this is why it needs to look to ourselves, because unfortunately we're not the only persons, Marshall, who's experienced it, and that's why it's about changing that. And with your book, it's absolutely fabulous. It's
Oh,
so
thank you.
important to have that representation, because I always say you can't be what you can't see, and
Yeah.
absolutely dyslexia and any neurodiverse condition doesn't discriminate in effect. So tell me a little bit about your book.
So my book's got 25 voices of other dyslexics and people who are neurodiverse. So they cannot have overlapping other learning differences or neurodivergence, whether it's autism, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, ADHD. And they sort of share their experience in the book about their journey. And what's quite interesting, predominantly quite a huge amount of them have all got diagnosed at university. So just let's think, if you didn't go to university, what happens? Does
Yeah.
it happen in the workplace? So that was really interesting, and I'd love to do research, but never had the opportunity. But that tells me something in itself about what's happening, where we're getting screened, or if we're really starting to struggle and we've kind of navigate or mask through aspects of the education system. But when we get to university now, what happens? So I'm always questioning things. So that was one thing what came from the book. My daughter's in the book, which is phenomenal, because dyslexic is genetic. Some people will say, well, I'm not dyslexic, or I'm not dyslexic, but somewhere along the line, there may be some genetics to it. I'm not a special scientist or anything, but I know it's genetic, because my mum's dyslexic, was dyslexic. I'm dyslexic, my daughter's dyslexic. And there's other family members who, since I talk about dyslexia all the time, they've told me, well, oh yeah, I was told I was dyslexic at school, but I kind of just shoved it off. And I'm like, so that's why it's so important to talk about it. But
Absolutely, because what you're saying there is like the nail on the head. Because I think especially parents, when they're, not 9 times out of 10 it happens when the child or someone gets diagnosed in that sense, and then it's like, well, I don't know where this has come from. But actually, when they read that report back, or they look at the child and thinks, oh, actually, I'm a bit like that, and it manifests in different ways. And I think again, it's the power of talking, isn't it? Now we're hearing so much about it. We've still got a long way to go, but people are having these conversations more, and actually it's recognizing that pattern where these parents or grandparents growing up probably thinking they was told they were stupid, they're
Yeah.
not listening, they've got poor concentration, where actually, sadly, it makes sense for why, even though there's nothing wrong with being dyslexic, it
Yeah.
explains why they were like that, and it's a shame they didn't get that support.
Yeah, this is the book, just to see, it's quite a bright color. So it says Black, Brilliant and Dyslexic. Now, just to put something in the mix, just because it says Black, Brilliant and Dyslexic, it doesn't mean it's just for people who are Black or you know, color. You know, it's for everybody, really. It's an experience, it's a journey. And those, you know, I just wanted that visibility, because I always never felt I was visible. We knew there was dyslexia, we know there's famous people with dyslexia, but we didn't see, or I didn't see, people who looked like me. And I wanted to empower others to know that. But it's for educators, it's for academics, it's for anybody who just wants to read and have a different kind of angle looking at intersectionality and also looking at dyslexia, because it has different layers depending on your lived experience, your environment, how you've been educated. It's got different factors to it, to how you can show up. And how you can get the opportunities to get the right support as well. So that intersection is really important, and my book touches on that.
And I think that's fantastic. And what you're saying, that I'm really glad you said it's not just for people who think, oh, I'm not in the Black community, I can't read this, because it gives, because I think it's really important that people of all different cultures and ethnic backgrounds understand where they're coming from, because it's real lived experiences in your book, and you actually can really grasp and see where they're coming from, that perspective. And I think that's
Yeah.
amazing that you give these 25 stories that platform to do that, and you've had your daughters
Thank you.
read that. It's just brilliant. I love that. It's
Oh, thank you, thank you. But yeah, so that's a little bit about the book. I mean, obviously, I would always want to say, please have a, take a read of the book, and it's got lots of quotes in it, and it's across the world. It's not just the UK, so it's people from America, people from Africa talking about their experience, and there's just so many similarities. So we're not that different, even though obviously our intersections, because I may live in East London, or in London, you may live somewhere in Wales, or we're going to have different experiences and different layers to that, and it can be complex. But we are neurodiverse or dyslexic by design, and that's something that should be celebrated as well, in a way, to say that those differences can be enriching our community, and we should be included and be at the table.
absolutely. And you'll be doing a lot of this at the Dyslexic Show in 2024, won't you, at your talk? You're going
Yay!
to really emphasize this, and it's just going to be fabulous to hear you talk in person.
No, bless you, thank you. I want to really bring this kind of thought process. When I talked before, it was a lot about the support what parents can receive, like SEND support and all these different things that are really important. Sometimes parents don't know about, and how to advocate for that. I still want to bring that back in, but I also want the next generation. So I'm hoping I've got to meet some really great dyslexic young people, and I'm hoping they can come to the discussion, because we need to hear the next generation's voices, because they really are the future. I feel like I've been around for a little while now, but there's voices that we need to hear, so that they can be elevated and they can bring themselves to the discussion and the table, because we don't always hear our young people's voices. And that's some of the work I really want to sort of speak about. We need to bring our young people into the forefront, because they're experiencing it on a daily basis in a different way that I did, even though there's so many similarities. And I'm thinking, why are there so many similarities happening? What's not changed, or what should be changing? Why is it not changed? And those are the conversations I want to have, that kind of intersection with our young people. So I'm hoping I can do that.
Marcia, in the meantime, because the show was going to quickly come around in March, where can people buy this fantastic book, and where can people find about your work and get in touch with you?
So this book can be found on Amazon, or on Jessica Kingsley, my publisher's actual website. They have it there as well, but Amazon could be a good place to find it. Send Books will be at the Dyslexia Show, and they'll be also having copies there that I'll be happy to sign. So I'm hoping that I get a signing opportunity to sign some books for people if they would like my signature. They don't have to, but definitely I'd love people to buy the book, and love to have those in our schools and in our academic universities, for sure, to have something different in our curriculum, so we're, people can see themselves in there, and when they're talking about stories they can reference it. We're not having anything to reference from a neurodiverse, from a cultural perspective. I think we're missing something there, because people want to research and write those stories of people from different cultural backgrounds and their lived experience. You can find me on LinkedIn as my name, Marcia Brissett-Bailey, and I'm on the Instagram. I'm called the Black Dyslexic. That's my AKA name.